Hello again, everyone. Welcome to Washington Gun Law TV. I am Washington Gun Law President William Kirk. Thanks for joining us. You know, a few years ago, we had somebody else occupying the White House, and he was a colorful character, to say the least. And I do not mean to get political here, but there was a phenomenon that developed for those who opposed that individual where they literally just became deranged. They detached themselves from reality and consistently had tissy fits, and we began to call that Trump derangement syndrome. Well, I think the same thing is going on now among state legislatures as it relates to your United States Supreme Court. And what we have now is a case of BDS. What is BDS? Well, that's Bruen derangement syndrome. And it's where we start seeing state legislators absolutely crapping their pants about the Bruen decision and doing everything within their power to make sure that they get to squelch as much of their citizens' constitutionally guaranteed rights. And now we have another state who's decided to really bite off a big chunk and try to chew on it. So let's spend a few minutes today talking to you about a very terrible piece of legislation, a very troubling piece of legislation. So today, we're going to spend a few minutes to talk about Minnesota, the next state to have a legislative meltdown over Bruen. Okay, so the issue we're talking about today is SF 1723, a bill introduced in the Minnesota State Legislature earlier this month. Now, I want to thank the good folks over at the Minnesota Gun Owners Caucus and follow them on Twitter right down there. That's their handle. We're going to put some more information about that group in the description box down below. I found this story by following them on Twitter. They do really good work. And I think for those of you in Minnesota who want to stay up on this is going to be a really, really good resource. So please do use them. We are talking about SF 1723. Now, for those of you in Minnesota, maybe some of you have not checked out or geeked out with us here on Washington Gun Law, there is really only one way when you're not the state of Washington that you're going to end up on our channel, and that is usually you are doing something so atrocious, so terrible, so nefarious that we just have to talk about it. Now, there are plenty of states who've managed to fall onto that list recently. Of course, my home state of Washington is always going to be first and foremost, but we have a couple of close neighbors in Oregon and California who consistently disregard any of their citizens' Second Amendment rights. Of course, recently to that club, we've added Illinois with a doozy of an assault weapon ban. Of course, the state of New York, the state of New Jersey, the state of Maryland, but Minnesota, you are about to join that list because when we take a look at SF 1723, which is sponsored by Senator John Marty out of your 40th Legislative District, Senator Liz Bolden out of your 25th Legislative District, and then recently added on as an author, Senator Alice Mann out of your 50th Legislative District, this bill does what most other states take 2 or 3 years and 4 or 5 bills to do. Very ambitious piece of unconstitutional legislation occurring here because this piece of legislation literally will attempt to choke out any living portion of your Second Amendment rights that you may still enjoy in Minnesota. Don't believe me? Well, we'll put the links for the bill down below, but this is everything that if this bill became effective law, this is what the bill would do. It would require registration of all firearms. It would require registration of all magazines capable of holding more than 10 rounds. It would require registration of most semi-automatic rifles. It requires all gun owners to have a permit to possess any firearm. And this is a big thing that we're seeing in a lot of these gun grabbing states. It's happening out here in Washington State too, which is that you need to go get a hall pass, a permission slip before you can then go exercise a constitutionally guaranteed right. It'd be like having to have a license before you get to decide what church you go to, or have a license before you decide that you get to be free from cruel and unusual punishment. And so this is a common trend. We saw it in Oregon ballot measure 114. We're seeing it in Washington State in House Bill 1143, and we're seeing it here now in Minnesota in SF 1723. But guess what? There's a lot more to this bill because in addition to that, this is all the other things this bill would do. Prohibits carry at all government facilities. Would restrict gun owners to only one purchase every 30 days. It creates a crime to carry a firearm past a sign in which the property owner would say, I don't want guns here. Okay, now think about all of the little hodgepodge of legality and illegality you would have. But guess what? There's more, including would bar the purchase of almost all semi-automatic rifles, would require all gun owners to have liability insurance. Now, you can imagine this, that you require everybody to have liability insurance, but then you just make sure that no insurance company is willing to insure people for that purpose in your state, or you, through regulations, make it impossible for a company like that to establish business in Minnesota, and you see where they're going. But guess what? There's even more, including bars 18 to 20-year-old adults from possessing handguns or most semi-automatic rifles, and requires physical and mental health testing as determined by the Commission of Public Safety before you can possess firearms. Now, this is everything that this bill purports to do. And if you don't believe me, that's fine. Go ahead and click on the link in the description box down below and read it for yourself. So, this has an absolute litany of constitutional violations. Now, Minnesota, you might as well start getting used to some of these terms and start geeking out on them now. When it comes to the assault weapon ban, that is a violation of what's called the common use test. It was really authored in the Heller opinion. It was reaffirmed in the Bruen opinion, and it basically says that the Second Amendment protects the firearms that are in common use and common circulation in today's day and age. So the semi-automatic rifle on the AR platform is by far the most common sporting rifle on the planet, used for multiple purposes, including self-defense. It's clear violation of the common use test as defined in the Heller opinion and the Second Amendment. The pre-purchasing licensing thing, Minnesota, this is the argument that you need to become familiar with, because you take anybody who supports this and just take the part about buying a gun out and replace it with any other type of civil liberty. You know, the ones enunciated in the first 10 amendments. So you need to have a license before you go to church. You need to have a license before you speak freely. You need to have a license before you are free from cruel and unusual punishment. You need to have a license before you're free from unreasonable government searches and seizures. You need to have a license before you are free from having to testify against yourself. You see the absurdity of this position. And then the issue as it relates to 18 to 20-year-olds is an issue that is ongoing with a lot of federal litigation right now, and I will tell you that those proposing this type of legislation are not faring particularly well in the courts. Okay, this bill was first read on the floor on February 16th. It was immediately sent to the Judiciary and Public Safety Committee that same day. Senator Mann then added her name to it on the 21st. What can you do? Well, this is the important part. You all, everyone in Minnesota, you need to get involved, okay? We're going to put links down below. Again, this is all information provided to us by the Minnesota Gun Owners Caucus. Again, follow them at this Twitter handle right down below. We're going to put links down below. You need to start engaging with your state legislature. You need to start donating money to the groups that are fighting this, and you probably need to start donating some money to some of the legal groups that will then do the litigation if any of this passes. We will keep our eyes on this. Once again, it is SF 1723. It is absolutely one of the largest and most terrible pieces of gun legislation we've seen in the last few years, and that's saying something because we've seen a lot of terrible gun legislation. We will keep you apprised as to any developments. I want to thank my good friends at the Minnesota Gun Owners Caucus for turning us on to this story. In the meantime, if you guys have any questions about this or anything else related to what's left of our Second Amendment rights, here's the drill. You can always contact us at WashingtonGunLaw.com, or you can call us directly at 425-765-0487. Now, in the meantime, let's remember, part of being a lawful and responsible gun owner, like we talk about all the time here at Washington Gun Law, is to know what the law is in every situation and how it applies to you in any instance that you may find yourself. Until next time, thanks for watching, and stay safe.